Hey there. So today what I want to do is just cover the space of miscellaneous specialized game engines. And this is going to be on the 2D game engines variety because I'm following off of some the primary 2D game engines out there. So what you'll see on my screen right now is over in the Steam page, Shoot 'em Up Creator or Shmup Creator. And it's basically to make your own Defender style or Asteroid style, Galaga, whatever, shooting game. So it's basically a dedicated engine where you make a spaceship and you shoot up a whole bunch of things. There's a helicopter. There's I don't know what that one is. It's kind of a Tetrisy style one, I think. Maybe you're in the center and you're shooting all these shapes and blocks. I'm not sure how that hedgehoggy one is, but anyway, there's a classic one. You're flying vertically. You your character ship basically stays still on the screen. The screen moves slowly past you in that direction my mouse just went, and all the time you're shooting and destroying objects on screen. Very typical games like R-Type, Defender, things like that, right? So basically, it's very specialized to making those type of games. Another one is RGP Architect. Let's just find it here. Let me just search for RGP. Yeah, it's not showing it there. Oh, I know. It's probably in my wish list. Let me go into my Steam, minimize this, and we'll just open my Steam here. And let's go to my library. And right here. So RGP Architect. Let's go to the store page. And it has a 3D mode, but it's more of a interpret 2D mode. Like the main thing here is there's your characters running around, your 2D area that you've built, and you set up basically a single player RGP game. And it does have a 3D mode. Here you can see it's taken that 2D and just interpreted it into 3D. And it does it by, I think it's Z stacking or layering for separate instances in the zone. That's about it for pictures. You kind of get the idea. There's the engine for it again. Similar. You got your staging area here. Your information down here about the object you're working on, and your selection lists and things over here. I'm sorry I don't have a bigger picture of it. I haven't actually installed it, even though I purchased it. I've preferred working with RGP developer backend, but that is a 3D engine. It's a specialized 3D engine, and we'll cover that when we get to that point. But I just wanted to cover this one here. I'm going to close my Steam store out and go back into the web browser. And it's very much like RGP Maker. And the RGP Maker series has been around for a lot of years. And what they basically are is they are, I don't have a whole lot of images here, but we're just going to go here, learn more. And then we'll pull up some screenshots here. So here you can see on the screen, it's the same thing as RGP Architect, more or less. You've got your little Chiba style characters. You've got your face portraits. You've got a 2D map you run around on with your trees and grass and buildings in orthoscopic view. I'm not sure exactly how that's pronounced. Different people pronounce it different ways. But basically top down rather than angled perspective. So it's a top down perspective view, but not a full true perspective view, which is at like a 45 or a 33, depending on which version you subscribe to. But that being said, yeah, a lot of phone games are in this style. If anyone's played a phone RPG game, a lot of them have actually been made with the RGP Maker series. So they're very specialized, single player. There's no multiplayer, and they're very user friendly. The editors. Here's your class editor. Add your skills or abilities that you get at certain levels. Um, your menu bars across the top for the different things. Your map editor on the side. When you close this window, there's a stage. Is there a picture of it? That's the skills window, weapons window, battler window. So yeah, and that's the thing about these is they're not an action combat. They're a turn-based combat, and very much like the old Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, like the old Final Fantasy 1 through 4, and then the Sega Genesis Phantasy Star series had the battler. So you'd enter into a battle on the main map, and then it would switch to a battler screen. Your bad guys are on one side, you're on the other side. One player steps forward, some action graphic appears on the screen, then damage occurs on the opponent. Then they get their turn, and vice versa. And yeah, that's how those pretty much all those games work. They're very, very turn based. I'm just trying to see if I can find a picture of the stage. Dialogue editor, show text. That's probably like a quest editor, event editor, quest editor, more or less the same. But you get the idea. So again, that's a specialized game engine. There's a series of them, RGP makers, and they are for making 2D top-down orthographic, orthoscopic role-playing games. And that being said, that brings me to the next one that I want to show you. And this is the one that I use, so I actually can, and I'm working on a project for it right now actually, so I can demonstrate it to you. I'll just close my browser off here. This is the Intersect engine. And how the Intersect engine works is much the same way as the RGP makers. However, you run a server. Now, I have that server up and running on a virtual machine in my Proxmox environment. So I can go ahead and log in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log into the client and give you a quick demo of it. And so what you have, WSA keys to move around. There's my character sprite. Now that character sprite sheet is made from these sprite sheets here. So this male base is that character that's then been created. So if we go back to here, you can see that if I open up this, and if I unequip my pants, and if I unequip my red hair dye, that is that character sprite. Oh, where is it here? So that is that character sprite, and I made these character sprites. The regular character sprites for these, let me just go here. I'm just going to equip my pants again, and equip my hair again. This is what the regular character sprites look like. So you can see my character sprites are taller and a little less Chiba style. So these are 32 by 32 gridded, these ones. Mine are 32 by 64 gridded, the ones that I've made there. And there's an example of a minor character made off of those base sprites, just like I showed you in the game. And what you have is you have your 4 direction motions and how it's set up by default in the Intersect engine and in the RGP maker, and I believe, I'm not sure in RGP Architect, but other games similar. Any games that use sprite sheets, it's some variety of this. You have top-down movement, or walking downward, walking to the left, walking to the right, then walking up. And so you basically 4 of each in a walk cycle of each of those. And how the Intersect engine works is if you don't use extra animation sets, because every animation set you add, it's going to be at least 4 more characters. And that's going to add extra where you've got to do all the hair, the clothes, the weapons, all the things that sit in a paper doll, which is basically like a Photoshop layer sitting on top, and you can stack them. So you know you can have boots, pants, top, hair, sword, shield, armor, whatever. You can have many different layers, right? And so here on this base layer, you can see I put the boots and the bra on already, so that the base layer, you don't need to change the boots and the bra or for quite some time on this female. And that's just for decency purposes. But every time you want to change something, so say you want to make that a t-shirt, or like this fellow's got, instead of the base male who has nothing but his boots on, this guy's got his boots, but then there's pants and a shirt, and those are both separate layers. And then the paper doll for the pick is a separate layer, and the hair is a separate layer. And so you have to draw all of those out, and you have to make all of those colors, and you've got to name them appropriately and keep them in a resource folder. And then you call them for events or things like in the game here where I've equipped them, so that way I can unequip the pants, and that's one layer I'm turning off. But he still has the axe and he still has the hair. I turn that layer back on, and I can unequip the axe. Now he's not holding the axe. I can equip the sickle. He's now holding the sickle. I can unequip the sickle, and I can equip the pink ether sword. So you can see how those work. Give him back his woodsman axe, and I'm just going to bring him over here. And in this game, I've set it up so that you can chop down trees as a resource. And so you're doing damage to the tree. And you can see there that chopping action, if you look over to the right-hand side of the screen, the miner's got a pick. And that pick is the third screen. And so if you don't assign separate action animation, you can choose which one of your frames is going to be the action animation, and by default it's the third. So I've made the third action with the pick out for ease of use for these characters. Now, there's a deer. You've already seen the stock, kind of the RPG assets with this clown character. You've seen the quality up to my first rendition of my own characters. Well, the ones that I'm working on now are going to be much more realistic here. And you can see that these ones are more human-like and less Chiba-like. So you've got your extreme Chiba, you've got your kind of in the middle-ish, so still kind of stylized, cartoony looking, and then you've got the more realistic ones that I'm working on now. And so these ones are going to be another set where there's an action for a separate action for the attack. Then there'll be a separate action for casting magic, a separate action for shooting, a separate action for sword slashing. And each one of those is going to need its own layers for each and every item that you want to make look different in the game. So if you want blue pants, they'll all need a blue pants for each one of those. For a red shirt, they'll all need a red shirt. For green sword, you'll need to make a green sword for all of the ones you want to attach it to. Now, one way that I'm working around that is the only ones that I'm doing a paper doll item on is going to be like the harvestable items that you carry around, or the tools, or maybe just the clothes, and then only like the attacks and the slash mechanisms and things like that will have special item weapons. That way I've only got to do specialized, like 90 different specialized clothes for each character. But anyway, that's the complexity, the more complex you get. So by using something like these, where you've got the third frame out, you don't have to do a whole bunch of different ones. You've still got quite a few to do, but not nearly as many. But anyway, we'll get back to the engine. I just wanted to cover a little bit of what I was working on there. But what we're looking at here now, I'm going to escape out of here. And then I want to go to the editor and give you an overview of the editor. unless it's running. It's running. Okay, I already have it up and running. So here's the editor, and again, you've got your different attributes and tools over here. So here is like these blocked out tiles. If I had like a warping zone to go from one tile map to another, you'd set it up as a warp block. Here these R's are resource blocks. So those are things that are harvestable in the game. This gray line is the grid line showing the tiled area. If I go to my grid view, each one of those is a separate area and it's labeled separately. They appear over here on this side. So here you can see, we'll go into this one here. Wait, no. Yeah, where do I want to go? Map editor. C2, C1. There we go. So this is, I'm just going to go back to the tile map. So to put a tile on, these are different layers. Ground, ground cover, mask 1. Mask 2 is just up a little more, like it'd be on the level of like sitting on top of this bucket. This is your fringe, so that would be like your middle tree level. And then your upper fringe would be like top of the trees or the peak of the roof. And why you would use these is if you're walking around, in some places you want your character in front of objects. In some places you want them sitting the same as the objects. And in other areas you want the objects above him or like way above him up in the sky, like moving parallax clouds and things like that. So that's where you would use that. And ground cover is under him, but over top of the base ground. So like this clump of grass and stuff. So if I was to go with this bamboo, you can see how it'll replace the ground there and it'll be black with just the bamboo. But if I go ground cover, I can click and now you see there's bamboo sitting on the ground. If I right click, it disappears. If I go to fringe layer and I click on the ground, now if my player character walks along, he'll be underneath that. That will be in front of him because it sits up higher. It's on the fringe. Right click again, deletes it. So that's basically how that works. You can change the lighting. You can put extra lights in, so like in caves or in houses. One thing you can do is you can put a light here on these windows, and then when the scene rolls, you have a day and night cycle. When it rolls into night, those will then glow with whatever color light you've set it up for. There are various game editors and various tools available. The tools is basically to build your updates so that they roll out to your clients, and it just pre-packages everything you made into a sequential update, I guess. So only the things that have changed change and move, and it's mostly graphics and map settings, etc. The game editors, there's an animation editor. That's for, well, I'll just open it. And I've got an animation here, so rotation, harvest. So basically you can do different frames, sprites, sprite sheets, etc. Time counts, colors, etc. What I've got is on this strike, this is just an animation that plays when you hit a tree or an object or whatever. It just gives a little flash on the screen. This pink sword, that's just basically if the sword hits something, you get a little spark. So like if it hits a creature, you'll have just like a little bit of sparks come off from it to show that you've hit, etc. That's basically what that tool set's for. Then the class editor, that basically lets you create your characters and set them up. So in a traditional medieval sense, it would be fighter, cleric, thief, wizard, and then you would set up the different stats, abilities, spells, if they regenerate hit points or magic points, how those work, their damages, their critical strike percentage, if they do physical damage or magical damage, all those sorts of things, right? You can set up their level up progression. Do they get better in these skills as they go up, etc., etc., etc. So that's basically that. Then you come into the event editor, which is the powerhouse of the engine, but it's used in conjunction with the quest editor. So the quest editor, I have a quest here set up, and it's basically got a before you accept it, then when you accept it in progress of doing it, and then when completed. And then there's events that are all laid out when you run these edit completion events. And they're basically like scriptlets or like pre-built code sections where you set up the variables and the modifiers, etc., by dragging, dropping, clicking, editing, etc., etc., etc. And then the heart of the engine is the where is it here? The event editor. The event editor. So I don't have any in here right now because I use the Quest editor to generate my events. But events can be done for everything from teleporting people, changing day-night cycles, doing environmental effects. Pretty much anything you can configure in the game, you can configure with the event editor. And you've also got the projectile editor. I don't have any projectiles made yet, but basically if you shoot a gun or a bow, you would set up a projectile to be shot out of that, and then you'd set up the item to shoot it. Resource editor, that's where you set up harvestable resources. So here I have set up a raft. So there's what the raft looks like. And then once you've harvested it, the raft, and taken it apart, it's part of your starting quest. That's what it looks like on the map after you've collected the gear from it, or whatever it has to drop. And then you can set up prerequisites and things for that. And spells, shops, etc., etc. Crafting editor. I have a crafts table set up. Pickled egg. So you learn to make you can learn to make a pickled egg. And basically what it says is it needs 1 dillweed, which you harvest here from this garden. Those are dillweeds. And you need a chicken egg, which down in this next screen there's chickens that harvest, and you'll harvest a chicken, get an egg, get a dillweed, then you come back in the house to a craft station. Where is the... I don't have it set, but let me go to the editor for it. Crafting table. So pickled egg from Don's Kitchen. So Don's Kitchen is set up as a crafting table, and there you can make the pickled egg, and it's using that recipe for pickled eggs. So you can also set up stores in much the same way. Do I have a shop set up? I do. Sally's store. So items sold, items bought. You can put prices on them and what they are, etc. And yeah. So you more or less get the gist of it. And this same idea is more or less in most of these specialized 2D RGP making engines. This one happens to be multiplayer online and has a server component to it, which is why I'm using it. But anyway, that's about all I wanted to show you today, was just some of these specialized 2D engines that are out there. And there's other types out there, like there's also other ones like Action Combat, and a few other ones on the Steam engine that you can get. And they're very specialized for making a particular type of game. Now, what I would wish, and there are a few of them out there, but I would wish that more 3D specialized engines will come along. RGP Developer Backend is one that I have, and I'm going to cover it in specialized 3D engines. But it covers doing very much like this, or like RGP Maker. Not so much this, it doesn't have multiplayer. And it's not an action combat, although you can have plugins, and there are some people developing some really fine plugins for it. However, it's more of the traditional SNES or Sega Genesis Phantasy Star type, with the battler screen that comes up when you get into combat. So it's very good. It's a good step in the right direction, and it reminds me a little bit of the Neverwinter Nights tool set with the square tiles that you lay down, the 3D tiles you lay down. Very similar to that. And I've actually, if you have it and you're interested in it, or you're going to purchase it, once you maybe see the video on it, I do have assets over on my itch.io page for it. And speaking of that, I will be putting these 2D assets. I'll be putting a kit with a bunch of base models for the Intersect engine, and I'll be putting down these 4 directions. I'll be putting down these, but I'm gonna redo them as 6 direction, so they'll be much more complicated. But I'll put down all the bases for them, including the action bases for them. And I'm gonna provide you with, I'm also gonna render out some 8 direction assets as well, just base models. But basically your walk cycles in your 8 directions, and I might do some attack, just some attack animations in your 8 direction as well for you. But those will all be in an itch.io kit for like $5 or something. So quite a bit of work has gone in, hours of artwork have gone into them. So they're a really good starting point that you can then use to make your own art assets without having to come up with the 3D models, render out the animations, and then break them out into these formatted sprite sheets. That'll all be done for you if you're interested at all. Anyways, that's where I'm going to leave this one. It's been a little bit long, but I'm going to leave it there for today, and I will see you in the next one.